Good evening, gentlemen, and all the listeners out there.
Hallo. Goeienaand.
Hallo.
Well,
Werner,
we've got
Patrick, Mike.
two of the biggest protagonists in Gymkhana on screen tonight. We can call them Verstappen and Hamilton if we want to.
Who
They
is
would
the
drive
rest?
over each other. Well, at the time, they would have driven over each other if they could. But the one is known to be spectacular. The other one is known to be exceptionally fast and full of nonsense as well, I must add. But we'll forgive you, Mike, eventually.
I
But
was
in the
wondering who's gonna chirp tonight.
In the background, you see the two vehicles, two of the vehicles they made use of many years. But the venue is the thing that made the big difference. There will never, well, I hope there will be another Mykonos somewhere, but that was possibly the most intimidating place to have an event. Those pavements never moved for nobody. And these two gentlemen provided much of the action there. Good evening to you, Mike.
Good evening, Patrick and Moneybags. Hello, Werner.
Everyone.
He's starting, his name calling.
Well, I think there's a lot more weight around now, Mike. You've certainly grown a bit bigger than we saw you last in the bucky.
No, it's this camera.
Is it just the camera?
It's the camera.
And the beard and the glasses.
Yeah, no, it's the COVID beard. You know, the weather hasn't changed. Terrible. I mean, I'm not like my counterpart in Langebaan. It's got a beautiful fire behind him.
Yeah, he's really rubbing it in.
He came from, what is that place called? Witzenberg, where were you?
Nee. Ons is in Bella en toe in Hartbeespoort.
Oh, that's nice.
Blue. It was nie Bella, it was blue.
Blou, ja. Ja, nee, hallo almal. Hallo Patrick, hallo Clint. Hallo Mike. Hoop dit gaan goed.
Hallo.
Ek dink ek is verseker die gelukkigste van julle almal om 'n vuurtjie agter my te hê. Ek moes aangesien dit klein Saterdag is. Hallo Andrei. Klein Saterdag is moes ek gou eers braai vir die familie. En ja, dit is vir my 'n groot eer om saam met julle te kan kuier vanaand.
Wel, ons gaan die gesprek sekerlik 'n tweetalig moet hou vanaand, want ons het vir Andrei ook nou by ons. Baie welkom Andrei.
Wat het al met ek praat, Duits?
Andrei, ons verstaan jy is onder 'n drukprogram, so ons gaan jou eerste aantree vanaand. In die agtergrond sien jy waaroor ons gaan gesels. Dis Gymkhana en is ook saaklik waar dit begin het by Clubmykonos. En nou tussen die drie van julle ons het net 'n stelling gemaak dat ons sal vir Mike en Werner kan kwalifiseer as Verstappen en Hamilton. Ek weet nie wie jy wil wees in Formule 1 terme nie, maar jy was bekend as die man wat die naaste aan 'n sypaadjie kon kom sonder om hom te tref.
Ja, dit is seker so. Ja, Patrick, ek weet nie wat om te sê nie. Dit was lekker tye.
Sit dit uit vir ons in perspektief, Andrei. Die Clubmykonos Gymkhana het 'n reputasie van sy eie opgebou oor baie jare. Ons het uiteindelik 30 byeenkomste daar gehou. En nou ja, daar's baie elemente daaraan betrokke. Sekerlik die grootste een is die sypaadjies wat vir niemand geskuif het nie.
Ja, nee, ek dink dit is die bekoring van Mykonos. Dis die uitdaging. Daar waar ons om cones ry en sulke goed, Mike en Werner sal weet. Daar's 'n hele paar vinnige lyne om 'n cone. Hulle is nie almal ewe vinnig nie, maar die verskil is nie so groot nie. Maar Mykonos, die tyd lê op die regte lyn teen die sypaadjies. The cost is big. If you hit them or you touch them, the cost is big. So dit vat iets en dit maak dit uitdagend en dit is dis wat ek van Gymkhana mis op hierdie stadium.
Ek wil graag die stelling maak teenoor al drie van julle. En dit is, toe ons oorspronklik begin het met die Gymkhana reeks, was die idee daar agter om die man op straat 'n geleentheid te gee om sy hand te waag in motorsport en te kyk as hy daarvan hou, kan hy dit aanbeweeg na die groter formules van die sport. Maar aan die einde van die dag neem jy deel hoofsaaklik teen jouself en 'n horlosie. En 'n horlosie vergewe jou vir geen fout nie. Hy sien alles raak. Tyd wag vir niemand nie, is die ou stelling. Maar is dit die uitdaging waarmee of is dit die uitdaging wat julle gesien het toe julle begin het? Of het julle groter aspirasies gehad van dag 1 af?
Ek kan eerste antwoord is as jy wil. Ek het in die Gymkhanas betrokke geraak nog voordat ek resies gery het met my ouers se voertuie. Ek sal nooit vergeet die Maxima en ek dink baie mense kan nog onthou my pa se Maxima wat ek gesteel het op 'n Sondag Gymkhana en later 'n Mercedes C280 wat is so lekker handbrake tins gemaak het want jy moet die handbrake het gewerk met 'n voetdek en dan 'n knoppie wat jy moet release. So dit was nog ons redelik moeilik. En toe het ek begin resies ry en toe het ek weer nog meer begin Gymkhanas doen. Ek dink aan ek het nou die dag die foto's gesien byvoorbeeld van toe ons gery het in Brackenfell by Brackenfell Mall. En met my resieskar wat ek genaal het by Kalani en dan op die N1 gery het soontoe. Ek klap met kar. Ek het nou aan baie lekker gelag. En toe uiteindelik by Mykonos obviously by Mykonos uitgekom en toe op 'n boot gegaan en toe omgepraat gewees om 'n rallykar te ry en ek is bitter bly daaroor want dit was nog altyd my passie gewees. So ek was toe die geleentheid gegee om in te kom deur lesfase en en ek dink dit is the rest is history soort van tipe van ding maar dis waar my rally begin het by Mykonos.
Ja, ek moet daarom net een ding byvoeg. Ons het net nou gespekuleer met watter voertuig dit was. Maar op 'n stadium het Werner teen 'n baie hoë spoed by draai 1 op Kalani aangekom. Ek weet nie wat verkeerd gegaan het nie. Maar die voertuig het al die rigtings behalwe hul se rigting gelei en uiteindelik teen die spermuur reg voor my voete tot stilstand gekom. En hy het net so gekyk en ek het vir hom gesê well parked. En hy het so 'n glimlag op sy gesig gekry, eerste raad gehaak en dan gaan hy weer. En maar ek moet toegee, dis die dag wat ek ook gedink het ek gesien het 'n baie talentvolle man agter 'n stuurwiel wat nie paniekerig raak as dinge begin verkeerd gaan nie. En hy het my laterand baie aangenaam verras ook deur sekerlik een van die skouspelagtigste bestuurders te word in Suid-Afrika. So Werner, jy mag 'n motor beheer.
Baie dankie, ek waardeer dit.
En so het elkeen van julle 'n unieke dissipline aangeleer en elkeen van julle het op hulle eie manier julle stempel daarop afgedruk. Andre, ek het net nou gesê jy's die ou wat die naaste aan 'n sypaadjie kom. Jy kon met daai swart Golf draai met die agterwiel wat brakelings oor baie hoë sypaadjies gaan. En vir een of ander wonderlike rede, ek weet nie waar jou radar ingestel is nie, maar niemand kan agter hom sien nie. Maar jy kry dit reg om met daai Golf uniek pynlik netjies te ry. Hoe leer jy dit aan?
Patrick, ja, ek weet nie, dit is 'n ding wat half natuurlik kom, maar ek het vanaand nou voor die show so 'n bietjie gedink daaroor. Nou ek onthou basies 18 jaar of 17 jarige ouderdom leerlinglisensie hoe ek my ma se Golf eenetjie gery het, dat ek sypaadjies kan voel. Jy kan die lig begin voel tussen die sypaadjie en die voorwiel of jy wipe hom net so. So dit is 'n ding wat al 'n tydjie gekom het. Nie op kompetisie vlak nie, maar ja, dit is ek kan nie regtig sê hoe leer jy dit aan nie, dit vat maar oefening. Ek weet ek is nou 'n bietjie verroes, as ek dit nou gaan probeer, gaan ek waarskynlik 'n sypaadjie of 2 klits. So, maar, ja.
Well, I had the privilege to navigate for all three of you at some time or the other. Mike, you became the king of Mykonos. You also have a reputation at Mykonos in that little Mazda Rustler bakkie, a most unlikely competitive vehicle. Nobody would have thought a bakkie will work as a competitive vehicle in motorsport. But you and that Bucky became legendary at Mykonos. The only thing we always doubt is what the real capacity of the Bucky was. See the wry smile on his face. He knows exactly what I'm saying, what I'm hinting at.
He's blushing.
Yeah,
So
that,
come on,
that,
Mike,
that,
you're on air now. Now you can give us the real facts.
that guy that eats sausages when he drives a car, Mr. Koekemoer. I happened to be in the pits one day at Kalani, and they were preparing, I think it was the white E30, I think. E30 Clubmykonos car, Werner?
Yes, yes.
And you were still doing, I think, Mr. Delivery out in Sea Point.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So Werner says to me, come, hop in the car quickly, I want to go to the Sea Point to go fetch something. Big mistake. So, I don't know what had to go there, and something had to happen at some of the ops room, whatever. And we went through to Sea Point. And this is the first time that I actually realized that you don't have to drive looking through the windscreen. Because there was a reason why there were side windows on the car. And my constipation problem sort of disappeared right there and then. I don't know where it disappeared, but I can tell you, it wasn't very pleasant all the way to Sea Point. And Werner just thought that he was actually going to work just to go and fetch something, and he didn't understand what the mess and the fuss was next to him in the car. You know, he convinced me that Saturday it was going to be this thing called Gymkhana and Clubmykonos. And I just started my window business, and I didn't have any funds. And I thought, okay, let me go down with my Bucky to go and see what it's like. And I went down there, and I was overwhelmed. And I was like, wow, check out all these acts. And everybody was just like on it. And then you gave me this piece of paper that looked like an ADHD kid that got hold of different things and done circles around islands. And I was like, what the hell? And today where the office is, there used to be a box that you used to go in, and you either had a choice of doing a handbrake turn or driving over the pavement. And I remember I went to your spectac, so how do you do this? And he said, no, just go in and drive smoothly. And that blue Bucky there, the white blue, we went there with this thing, and I had no idea what I was doing. Like, zero. And I had Roy Holick as my navigator. And Roy had been a season campaigning GTI Challenge, and I was like, yes, no pressure. He had won how many events? He had a car that had like 5 degrees negative camber. He was friends with Grant van Eck, and if you were friends with Grant van Eck, you were 2 seconds quicker automatically. And he was guys like Anton Slabbert, Nicholas Slabbert, no pressure. Leander van Rooyen, and Werner. And of course, you know, I got there, that's why I went to the Bucky, because my ego could fit in the boot. And after the first run, my ego literally went into the boot. And you quickly realize how technical it was. And it was like, I don't know if I can even do this. You couldn't turn the steering wheel quick enough and pull the handbrake and put your foot in the accelerator and keep your hand against the window arm. It was just hectic. And Werner would get out the car, and like it was a minute and something, and he would be sweating. I was like, really? And then I looked down at myself, and I was soaking wet, and I was like, this can't be true. And Andre drove a beach buggy on that event. Am I correct?
Yeah. One of the events, or a few of the events.
And you still wore the short pants and pluckies, I'll never forget. And then you had Niels Rabie over the radio in this tent, and this like used to get so excited. And like whether you finished last or not, it was just like to listen to Niels because he was talking so fast. And the experience was just, the first one was so overwhelming. I remember that night, if you got stuck with this act, Mr. Koekemoer at the bar with the yachts room. You didn't leave Never. I don't care. You left only late afternoon because you get locked up if you left before 12. And he's still friends with people like Kwesi Sonnenpoel, and those guys are like really no good to have at a Gymkhana. They're like really bad news.
Ja, we try. Maar dis die lekker tye. Dis hoekom ek dink motorsport op daai vlak juist so lekker is oor die kompaktheid van die hele storie, omdat dit so kompak is en oor die lekker kuier na die tyd. Ek dink dit was vir ons 'n groot ding om naweke hiernatoe te kom en hier te kom bly almal en nie te weet jy moet die vorige aand moet jy bietjie terughou want gewoonlik is die eerste aand ons maar uitskink aand. So moet maar mooi vir jouself pace en dan môreoggend ry die heel dag en dan môre aan dan ek dink as min van die parties wat ek nie sal onthou nie en ek sal verseker nie vergeet nie. Dit is verseker.
But Werner, do you remember how Patrick had a way of psyching us out before the event?
Ja.
You
Nou dit baie goed. Vrydag aan voor die tyd. Daar in sy Khalifa.
You know, when you arrived at Mykonos, if you didn't have anything, if you didn't have access to a bar or Werner's Khalifa, your nerves were shot. You didn't sleep, nothing. You'd probably spend most of the morning before the event hanging onto the toilet bowl because your nerves were buggered. And then you arrived there, and there was never pressure. Never.
Never pressure.
I remember, I think I changed the clutch because I was convinced that the clutch was always broken, but it wasn't. It was just I couldn't get that thing to stand still on the line. And that bucket, just to get the story straight, we left the bottom end standard on it, and that thing was square. It was a 77 ball and 77 stroke. And that thing could rev. We worked on the head for a while, and we couldn't get it over 100 kilowatts. And eventually it got to the point where I was just falling out the bus. So we threw off the fuel injection, put a stupid rev kit from the Peugeot in it, and we made it work. And it got 102 kilowatts. And I was like, yo. And I found a guy in Woodstock that had a hollow crank. Johnson's Engineering, I think it was. He had a hollow crank, and the old man Johnson said, don't you want to try this? And I was like, okay. And he spent like a week machining this thing, and this thing could rev. And I mean, it could rev. And people didn't want to believe me until they got in the car. And that thing used to rev to 9,500 revs.
Sure.
And the day that, was it Car Talk, Patrick?
Car Talk, yeah.
Yeah, Car Talk came down headed for Wood. The night before the event, the car, it rattled the bearing on the dyno. And I didn't have any spare Conrad bolts, so I took a standard Conrad bolt and put it in there. And I knew that the one ARP bolt was going to be short. And right up until the last run, it was just after the Zanin rally that Patrick and myself did, which right up until the last stage, we were out of the event. Remember, Patrick?
Mm-hmm.
And
It went back.
I knew that if I revved the bucket too high, it was going to blow up. And in that last run, it was, what's his name in the Fox?
Paul.
And Fox, not Top Paul Fox, man. That I can have the ability to stress me out. Anton von Bosch. He had the ability to stress me out before I even got out of Cape Town. And it was up until that last run. And I said, right, I'm going to rev this thing until it stops. And it did. I think I did it either with Hendrik or Patrick where it blew up. Was it with you, Patrick, or
Just
Hendrik?
there, but with me. We blew up at the top straight, going down the bottom.
Yes, to the
Right
head,
in front of the spectators. You
ventilation.
did it in spectacular style, right in front of all the spectators. You had maximum attention.
Yeah, the engine actually ran without the Conrad was sticking out of the block. It broke that Conrad bolt that I was worried about. But it revved to, I think it was 9.8 when it blew up. But
It went very quiet, quickly.
Yeah, that car had the ability when you revved it high, it would actually go quiet. And the best it ever was when it was the 1500 crank that was in there with the Toyota 20 valve piston. It made 119 kilowatts, but it would rev. And that was the secret to that thing. It never made a lot of torque, but it would rev. and you just needed it between the islands. But it was no use being the quickest because no matter what you did, whether you were the fastest or not, Werner would come in there with a BM and drive like someone that had stolen something, right? And like no one would remember the bakkie. Everybody would just like, onthou jy vir Werner Koekemoer, like really? And I never ever got to take the championship trophy home, even though I won it how many times. It was always stuck by Werner or someone. And I think the last time I was supposed to get it, Johnny De Beer had it. And in all the years that I had it, I never ever got to take that trophy home.
That's news to me. I never even realized that.
Yep, never ever got to take it home.
Well, we will have to make a plan because the trophy is still with Fani de Toy. Somebody's got to tackle him and beat him to get it back again. So we're going to have to make a plan somewhere in the future to do something about it. But another comparison I would like you to make, Mike, and it's not a fair question now.
If I may interject just for a second, Mike revving the bucket to where he revved it, I think it says something about the level of competition that they were. It was really split seconds, and you had to dig all of us had to dig very, very deep to get honors. I only managed to...
We had Sarel one day at Kalani at a GTI jamboree thing. Do you remember, Werner?
Yes.
When he drove the Subarus. And they had to do a lap around the oval and then go something on to where the stock car pits is today. And Sarel did 2 runs. And, I didn't, because it was Sarel. Werner knows, when you drink with Sarel, Sarel's different. But when he's competing, he's like, he gives you the worst answers ever. Hoe het gegaan? Goed. Hoe het jy gery? Yeah, right. Well, that was in the conversation. And he came to me and said to me, I don't know how you do this. And I said, why? He said, yeah, it's stressful. And I was like, what? That came out of your mouth. And it was 1 minute of hell. I can tell you it was hell. My nerves, it was the day of the event, that last run, and you needed to find a half a second. No, it was terrible, absolutely terrible. And if Werner would come with his 300 kilowatt 1 series and make you look like a fool.
Can I be the devil's advocate between the three of you? Andre, jy het vir Anton van Bosch, Fani de Toy, Duncan Jeftas, Mike Nathan, Brendan Green, ek noem nou 'n klompie name, Peter Peterson, al die manne teen hulle almal meegeding. Wie het jy as jou grootste opponent by Mykonos beskou?
Patrick, daai is 'n bitter moeilike vraag, want almal was kompetisie. Op die dag, jy het nooit geweet wie die kaart gaan trek tussen die, sê nou maar die top 5 of top 6 nie. Mike het baie van hulle gevat. I take my hat off to you. It's a real good achievement. But on the day you never knew. And obviously the routes favored certain drivers and cars a little bit different. But I respect all of those drivers. They were all very quick. I remember one particular race. I cannot remember which one it was, but we were going into the last run, and between the top 3 there was 0.05 seconds different. I remember it to this day. It was accumulated times because we were scoring 2 runs. But that's the level of competition. It wasn't always as tight. Sometimes maybe there was 0.2 or 0.3 seconds different. But even today, if you look at Formula 1 qualifying and you look at the delta, sometimes it's very, very close. Sometimes there's quite a bit of a gap. And I think what Mike just mentioned, in terms of that last run or getting that magic run, you basically knew if you screwed up in any one corner, your run was over. you were not competitive. That I think that's what touches to me on maybe what Sorrel says is on like a Mykonos run, you've got to do every corner at least 9.5 tenths. You cannot do an 8 or something out of 10, then your run is screwed. I don't know if the guys agree, but that's how I see it.
Mike, you're on record as saying that Mykonos was more difficult to do than a national championship rally as far as your concentration and your level of concentration is concerned. But
in 2006, when we came back from Zanin, we were racing every weekend, a Gymkhana or rally, regional or national, and it was like really stressful. And I remember we left Zanin with the Corolla, like put on the trailer with a forklift, and I managed to put a A6 gearbox in it because I wanted to win Mykonos with a Toyota that event. And that one. And when we got to Mykonos, it was something else to actually be there. We couldn't. The pressure on that day was just hectic because we had the TV coverage, and you had this cunning ability to wind everybody up in the press. Yeah. And Bobby and Dave Popke and Bobby came there with that Lotus, and I'll never forget, he had that tire warmers in that Lotus with a fancy sequential gearbox, no pressure. And he looked at me like this and went, "You competing with that?" And he looked at my bucky and I was like, "Yep." And I was like, "Yeah, this act's going to give us a hiding." And it was literally down to like the last half a second. And I didn't have an answer for him. I had new tires, I had tried everything. And I went back and I adjusted the back suspension higher because I needed to turn in. And that is it. We took 0.5 runoff him and we won by 0.1 of a second. And I'm telling you, when I stopped, the tears rolled down my face because the pressure was just so immense in that last run that I can't even explain to you how tense it was. It was your neck and everything was finished. And Werner used to put himself under pressure because he would have such a jaw in the first 2-3 runs. And in the last 2 runs, he had to do proper times. Then you had to see him when he finished his last run. He looked like he had just done a whole national rally in that last.
Ja, ek dink een van die dinge wat Patrick reg gekry het met die Gymkhana is hulle die klein dingetjies reg gedoen en ek bedoel klein dingetjies bedoel ek hulle die timing system reg gekry. Ek dink dit het 'n groot verskil gemaak want niemand kan 'n stopwatch druk op die regte oomblik nie. Ek dink daai Jaden timing, nee, is ek
Jaden.
Ja.
Jaden,
ja. Ek dink dit is 'n fantastiese timing stelsel en ek dink dit het grotenliks deel bygedra vir die sukses van Mykonos want ou wil nooit ry en aangewese wees op iemand anders se vermoë om te druk wanneer jy deur 'n lyn gaan nie. Maar daai het dit uit almal se hande uitgehaal en baie fair gemaak. Ek dink dit het 'n groot ding daarmee te doen. En natuurlik die toeskouers wat reg om die baan gesit het. Dis asof jy binne hulle driveway ry. Ek onthou een van my lekkerste closeste dices was die keer toe ons besluit het om die supercar, die ou en Ashley supercar te bring. Sonder 'n body natuurlik. En ek en Koos het die kar gedeel en ons is besig om mekaar groot omtrane te gee en hy het letterlik die laaste run het hy net die sypaadjie getref met hulle het sulke jack stands gehad op die kant en hy het daarmee die sypaadjie getref omdat hy so tight probeer gaan het en dit was letterlik dit was punte van sekondes wat ons geskei het op die einde van die dag, maar ja, dit was ek dink die timing stelsel het julle baie goed gedoen. Ek dink dit was 'n groot deel van die sukses gewees onder andere. Was 'n klein dingetjie, maar 'n groot deel van die sukses.
Ek dink dit is baie kritiese deel. Jy's heeltemal reg daar en ek moet baie komplimente gee vir Andre Mitchell en Neville Gleeson. Julle sal lag as julle sien hoe daai timing uitrusting ontwerp en getoets is. Dis letterlik die kinders het in die yard rondgehardloop en die beams gebreek terwyl hulle die verstellings gedoen het om alles reg te kry. Maar dit het ongelooflik goed gewerk aan die einde van die dag en ek stem saam. Dit was toe ons aanvanklik gesit en wonder het wat ons moet maak om Gymkhanas goed te laat werk, was dit een van die oorwegings geweest om stophorlosies uit die hande uit te vat en 'n regverdige stelsel te gee waar niemand dit kan bevraagteken na die tyd nie. Ja. En ek dink ook wat 'n baie groot rol gespeel het en die mense is geneig om te vergeet van hulle, is die kwaliteit van die kommentaar oor wat die heel dag die mense ingelig het oor Gymkhanas, want jy het grootendeels 'n toeskouerstal gehad wat niks met die sport te doen gehad het nie. Hulle het niks van motorsport geweet nie. En dit was absoluut krities om kommentators te hê wat daardie mense konstant kon inlig en op hoogte van sake kon hou. En ek dink Pieter Swanepoel of Swannie soos ons almal hom ken, Niels Rape het 'n briljante taak verrig as kommentators. Met tye het ek gedink hulle gaan met 'n blou oog huis toe vanaand soos wat hulle julle aangevat het. Maar dit is in 'n goeie gees gewees en almal het dit so opgeneem. En it was good, Mike, to have you there as the controversial factor. Man, you kept us on our toes all the time because you could squeeze a rule to the absolute limits. You had us rewrite the rule book every bloody event because you always had questions and it was because you were so competitive. You were always out looking for a win. And at the end of the day, we're not criticizing when we're saying that, but that's how that standard was maintained because every time we went there, we knew that you guys were going for one. The what?
The scariest thing on that timing system was when you stopped and you saw a red flag. Remember?
Yeah.
If you broke that beam and you went too far forward, it was I think it happened to me twice. And whether we stopped this way, or the beams between, I think the rules said it had to be between the front wheels and the back wheels had to break the line. Remember, Werner?
That's correct, yeah.
It didn't matter how you stop, but the beam had to go between the car. And I took my mud flaps off because it gave me more space if I crossed up and I stopped. And people didn't believe me until one day when I stopped. If I had my mud flap on, I would have been out. That's how tight it was. But the most hectic thing about doing the Mykonos series was we created rivalry between Witzenberg and CPMCC and the Popper Bear Championship. Then extended, we even had 1 or 2 events at Kalani, Friedenberg, Ceres, Montague. And one of the most favorite ones for me was the one that we did in Montague, where we went inside that hangar.
Yeah.
And that time it was very close. Our club championship was like literally down to the last event in Friedenberg. And I remember sitting around with Patrick at the table. And Witzenberg had outnumbered us because if you wanted to join and get a competition license, you had to join the club. And of course, Witzenberg was so involved in motorsport. CP wasn't that involved, but Witzenberg would take anybody with open arms to come and join. And you guys had the numbers. And we were like, to hell with this. We are going to beat them. And it was right down to the last event and the last competitor. Witzenberg took the championship by 5 points. And you could get, I think, 100 for the day. And I was like, that, took the points again. And we checked it again and it was 5 points. After the whole year. Do you still have that scores, Patrick?
I've got everything, and it will eventually come up onto the web page or the Facebook page in the different albums. But it takes literally years to work through all of this stuff and put it back on again. And basically, that's what I'm trying to start with this chat we're having tonight, is to rekindle that interest and the touch on some of the subjects that were happening all the way along the line. and create that interest again. Behind me, you see the Terrace Gymkhana, and I think, Mike, you will agree that I don't think there's another event that could add the atmosphere of that little Gymkhana in Witzenberg.
That was awesome with the balconies and Patrick, I think you won your class in the Green Conquest in that thing, or you finished second, I think, on that day.
No, you got a better memory than me.
Yeah, it was one of the few events that you actually drove. It was the last event, I remember.
No, I don't even remember that. There's something like 150 Gymkhana, so it's becoming a challenge to remember the exact result of everything. What I do remember is highlights such as yourself, King of Mykonos. We have to touch on the one element you haven't yet, and that is you actually won Mykonos as a navigator as well. Yes.
Peter Peterson on the one event. I said to him, Peter, come, I want to get you motivated on this event. And he had the right car, but I always felt that he didn't have the right navigator. And Peter brought in quite a bit of coverage for us being Cape Ads at the time. And Andre, you're falling off your chair there. And he brought in a lot of coverage. And I thought, okay, it was only fitting for us to make sure that this guy does well in the event. And that Subaru had traction like you have no idea. And it turned in, and he drove it so well. And Peter was just such an all-round nice guy to have around. And he was always eager to do something. And the horrible part about it was once he won Mykonos, that was it. He didn't want to ride anymore.
We never saw him again. He made it his goal to win Mykonos, and then for some reason he disappeared off the scene.
Yeah, I actually saw him not too long ago in Sunset Beach. He was still involved with the windsurfing. And he still looks exactly the same, but you would never say he's like 60 odd years old.
Well, aren't we all? Okay, Werner, jy tel nie in daai een nie.
Nee, gelukkig nie.
Mr. Koekemoer, you're now building an E36B, aren't you?
Oh, hoor jy al hierdie dinge? Ja, dis waar. Ons ek is nou al lank tyd besig met die kar. Ek het eintlik besluit dat dis nou tyd vir my om my kinders te leer om soos mal mense te gaan. En aangesien ek nou teruggekeer het na die plek waar ek van die burgemeester verkies is, wat ek nooit in my lewe gedink het dat ek in sal bly nie. Die kinders is nou so groot dat hulle ry nou deesdae vir my rond, al het hulle nou nog nie lisensie en goeders nie. So ek het toe besluit ek gaan weer 'n E36. Ek dink dit is my lekkerste kar gewees. Ek het die meeste pret daarmee gehad van al my karre. Want is 'n ding ek op die pad gery het en ek het hom op rallies gery en Gymkhanas en as ek op 'n Saterdag lus was, het ek Moreesburg toe gery op al die grondpaaie en ek dink dit is hoekom dit kar ook vir my gewerk het, is want as jy elke dag spandeer in 'n kar, dan leer jy ken jou padkar baie beter as wat jy jou resieskar ken op die einde van die dag. En so ek het lank gesoek vir die regte 328. Kan nie glo nie, ek het een in Vredenburg gekry eventually. En Pieter Toos het vir my 'n baie mooi roll cage gebou. Bietjie simuelding gedoen. Ons ken mos nou al waar die E36 moet versterk word, so al die punte is versterk en dit was
die weak point was the shocks,
shocks in back suspension en die diff mounting points, ja. So dit word alles versterk. En so ons is nog in die proses om die kar te bou. Hy was gister vir die eerste keer op die dyno gewees. Dis 'n gewone 328. Ek het nie die M3 roete gegaan nie.
Dis niks gewone met jou totaal. Dis niks gewone.
Maar meaning it's a 328. It's not a M3 like my last rally car was. But we were sitting on the dyno yesterday. There's one or two issues with the engine, in the sense that
hold on. It was a Tuesday night. It's not Braai night. Tonight is Braai night, but what are you doing on a Tuesday night?
But I couldn't do it tonight because I had to be on his
okay.
show.
Show, on the show.
You know, that was the only night to do dino.
Yesterday afternoon, and we had the car in the dyno. It's looking good. We had the head done at Van der Linde and had some mild cams put into there. Standard everything else. Changed the
Standard everything else.
Alice diff, obviously, and yeah, so that's. I actually want to take part in the E36 Cup, but that was my eventual goal. Maar nou, hoe meer ek die kar bou, nou raak ek al hoe luster vir rally ry.
Check out. So jy gaan op Riebeek wees, Werner?
Ons is nou op pad in die rally car stage toe. Gelukkig het hierdie rollcage en alles gebou sodat ek die kar kan gebruik vir rallies. En ja, ek wil graag my laaitjie en my dogter leer om bietjie rally te ry. Ek dink in vandag se lewe is dit seker een van die beste skills wat jou kinders kan gee, is om 'n kar ordentlik kan bestuur, veilig te kan bestuur en situasies te kan hanteer op die pad. Aangesien ons sulke klomp idiotiese bestuurders het op ons paaie wat hulle lisensies koop en mense vang simpel dinge aan. So
ek wil net sien jou seun gaan vir sy lisensie. Nee.
Ja, dis baie moontlik. Dis baie moontlik want ek het al klaar gesien waar hy gegaan het met my bakkie. En ek sien die appel val glad nie ver van die boom. So, maar dit is lekker. So ja, ek wil graag die kar bou en laat hulle saam met my ry en miskien oor 3-4 jaar dan gaan hulle 'n bietjie ry. As ek nie te lus raak en bly ry nie. Maar ja, ek hoop om hierdie jaar nog die kar te toets. En volgende jaar dan hoop ek om miskien so 'n bietjie die rally kampioenskap in die Weskaap aan te dink. My official comeback.
Well, we hear this rumor all the time of a certain Mike Nathan making a comeback as well. There's a beautiful Evo standing around somewhere doing nothing.
Collecting dust.
Mr. Mark, there is present company listening to this conversation. Yeah, Patrick, I sold the car a couple of years ago to Rocky Reineke. And when it came back, it had this misfire and we couldn't pick up what it was. And we changed computer boxes, rewired the entire car, changed the loom for the suspension, rebuilt 3 engines, and we couldn't find out what the problem was. And it just kept on running lean for some odd reason. And 3 engines later, we found out that it was the alternator that was spiking. And when it was under load on the dyno, we picked it up, and it was just someone by chance picked it up, that the computer's voltage would drop off, and it would just run lean for that time, and it would just melt all the valves. So we sorted that problem out now. Unfortunately, my health hasn't been too good. But yeah, we're on the mend now. It's a lot better. And now running out of oxygen, so now I've started doing it myself. And it's very good for hangovers. You know what? If we had these in the car when we were doing Gymkhanas, I'm sure it would have been a second control, because you could actually breathe. But yeah, I was fortunate to have Clint as a navigator in Klipdale in the car, just after him and Kevin rebuilt the car. And that stupid misfire we had wasn't any good. And it was actually a video that I posted on YouTube where we drove the entire rally with a 3-cylinder car, Clint.
Yeah, it was 3. It was it was a Riebeek rally.
Yeah, revving to 4,000 revs. And we managed to, I think we were lying second or we were leading that rally.
We were chasing, what's the guy from Namibia? Osvaldo.
Yeah, and like on the full stage, whatever, it just snapped the crank in half and took out the gearbox, and my checkbook and credit card and everything went with it at the same time. And we met Werner at the spectator point, and then Werner helped me get rid of my aches and pains that day. It was our first day, but I mean, Clint and myself went out in a conquest. I bought a pretty thick conquest. It was one of the Tsui conquests. And that thing, it's got a Toyota Runix 2ZZ engine in it. It now has a sequential gearbox, S2000 brakes, and it's got bits of my old A7 Corolla in it. I also bought the A7 Corolla and stole parts of that and put it in that car. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how this one goes now when it's done. I've always wanted to drive a Conquest with a sequential box and with proper power. So yeah, I'd like to do maybe an event soon with it. But I need a navigator like you or Clint, you understand?
I think Patrick is retiring soon, so he's free.
Clint doesn't look too afraid that side.
This is the only that can not come to a rally because he's studying at 40 years old. I don't know why he still needs to study. I mean, you can't remember it now. Then I don't know. And all his time in Africa, and it's just like, all the good acts are always taken. So, and I recently had a young navigator with me that was helping me on the car, and he did pretty good. And after the first stage, he was a bit rattled because he couldn't believe the pace that little Conquest could run at. And I was quite surprised that I could actually hang it in there against myself in the Evo with that car. But, it took a lot out of me to run with that thing at Nelson's farm with that thing. It's like I'm not what I was.
The one thing that neither of you, Werner or Mike, can say is that you still own the original car that you rode. Well, you can, but I've never seen it again. But,
I do.
Andre Dreyer, you still have the very same black Golf that you made a legend of at Mykonos. Is it still in much the same trim, or has it seen a lot of modifications in the meantime?
Patrick, no disclosure. There's no modifications, but it may look a little bit different. Anti-ass.
Okay, that's a nice way of saying he's ready for you, Mike.
Yeah, but I think I might be bringing it up to Limpopo. So that's the plan.
Are you going to be stuck up in Limpopo, or are we seeing back in the Cape soon again?
My family is in Cape Town, so I'm actually flying down tomorrow. But I'm an expat in Limpopo. So I've got to keep myself busy. I'm checking out Red Star Raceway, track days, stuff like that. SWAT cops maybe later, but just to keep busy. But I still need to get a little bit settled in before doing too much of that kind of thing. But it's time that it drives again.
That sounds good. At least there's some life in the old dogs again. Werner, ek moet weer by jou aanraak. Die foto agter my is 'n man wat ongelukkig nie meer met ons is nie, maar hy het ook net sulke diep spore getrap soos julle in Gymkhanas, Werner die Jong. Almal gaan mal oor drifting, almal gaan mal oor dwarsry en vir die toeskouers ry. Minder het beter gedoen as Meinhard. Jy en Meinhard, ek wil amper nie sê was op dieselfde vlak as ek dit die vergelyking mag tref nie, maar julle het geweet hoe om toeskouers se harte te verbly. Hoe dwarser, hoe beter. Hoe nader aan die sypaadjie, hoe beter. Jy is een van die min mense, en ek het die voorreg gehad om langs jou te sit terwyl hier dit doen, wat daai blou E36 kon dwarsry en die voorwiele eenvoudig oor die sypaadjie tel as jy te naby kom aan hulle. Dit was 'n regtige voorreg geweest om dit te kon beleef, net soos wat 'n voorreg was om saam met Andre en Mike te ry. maar elkeen van julle het 'n, soos ek gesê, 'n unieke talent gehad. En joune was om daai BMW deur gate te maak pas wat 'n ou nie wou deurloop nie. Het jy dwars deur gery. Watter element van die sport geniet jy die meeste? Om skouspelagtig te wees of om 'n resultaat na te jag, as ek dit so kan stel?
Eerste van alles dit is dis jammer dat my naat nie meer saam met ons is nie. Ek onthou hom as 'n regte gedigte ou wat ek teen gery het en hy kon ook 'n M3 handel en 'n Lumina en hy was ook regtig baie talentvol geweest. Ek het baie respek vir hom gehad. Patrick, dis moeilik om te sê. Dit hang af wat 'n deel van die sport ek beoefen op 'n sekere stadium. Soos wat jy wel weet, het ek gewoonlik 2 keer geënter op 'n Gymkhana. 1 keer vir tyd en 1 keer vir show. Want dit vir my, ek dink dis belangrik om jouself ook te geniet om die show deel ook te doen. Want dit is lekker en dit hoe groter die glimlag en dit haal 'n bietjie die stres op jou einde van die dag af. Maar dit is ook lekker om daai competitive edge, daai bietjie te probeer uithaal en te kyk waar. Ek was om vir die idee te gee, ons het nou die finale gedoen van die Spirit of Africa saam met Sarah hulle daar in Zeres. En
Last weekend.
Sê weer, Mike?
Last week.
Ja, laas week, ja. En ek was verbaas gewees oor die absolute level van kompetisie wat daar in daai kompetisie is. Ek beloof julle, dis nie net van inklim en jy ry hulle in hulle kasse nie. Al die uitdagings wat ek nog gery het ek al die speed stages altyd gewen. Maar daar was dit nie net van dit nie. Daar's 'n paar triks om daai 3 liter V6 Amarok te ry. En ongelukkig kom mense dalk jy try so baie verskillende dinge, maar om nou terug te kom met die competitiveheid en die tyddeel in die absolute breekdeel van sekondes, is ek het eers die Sondag die regte manier gekry om daai bakkie te ry en toe was ek was altyd so 'n sekonde, ek was in die hele veld was 2 sekondes uit mekaar uit op 'n stage wat baie naby aan mekaar is, regtig waar. Want jy moet deur paaltjies ry en dis ek weet nie wie van julle dit al gedoen het nie, maar as jy die kans kry kan jy dit gerus gaan doen. Dit bring jou weer 'n bietjie terug aarde toe, want dit is 'n baie lekker kompetisie, want dit het soveel fasette in die hele storie. Maar ja, op die laaste dag het ek eers agterkom hoe om die bakkie te ry en toe was dit vir my lekker, want toe kon ek daai punt 2 en punt 5 en punt 9 van 'n sekonde uit die bakkie uittrek wat die ander ouens nie kon nie. So ja, ek geniet albei, maar partykeer moet 'n mens sideways ry en partykeer moet 'n mens vir tyd ry en ek dink hoe ouer ek raak, hoe meer begin ek verstaan waar die tyd lê en dis nie altyd in die sideways nie.
Mag jy nou die aap uit die mou uitlaat en vir ons sê wat die resultaat was vir die bakkies?
Nee, ek is hopeloos te skaam om dit te sê. Ja, kom ek sê vir jou, soos ek sê, dit is 3 dae van kompetisie gewees en die kompetisie werk op die basis dat die spoedgoed word, die vinnigste ou kry 100 punte, die tweede vinnigste ou kry 90 en dan val dit met elke 5 punte af onder toe. So jy dink jy ry alright, maar as jy 0.1 of 0.5 van 'n sekonde stadiger is as die eerste ou en daar's 10 ouens voor jou, dan kry jy net 30 of 40 punte. So dit is regtig baie tyd. So en alles werk op punte en natuurlik as jy die 4x4 deel doen en jy raak 'n vlaggie, dan is dit 10 punte af en as jy 'n rooi vlaggie tref, dan is dit 30 punte af. En vlaggies beteken jy ry definitief beslis die bakkie deur die paaltjies, as jy hom reguit deurry, is daar geen manier wat die bakkie sal deurgaan nie. So jy moet hom basies deurry terwyl jy obstacles doen. So is baie interessant en ek het baie geleer en was regtig baie lekker geweest. Maar ja, ek het 13de gekom. Maar die laaste dag het ek ek dink 3 van die spoed stages het ek gewen van die 4. die derde ene, of die een was ek derde en die ander was ek eerste gewees. Maar ja, die eerste 2 dae het ek bietjie geslaap. Ek het gedink ek moet nie baie kuier nie, en ek vroeg gaan slaap en goeders, en die laaste aand het ek baie gekuier en weet nou hoe die ding werk. Te veel aan 'n ding dink, dan overthink jy goeders en dan ja. En onthou my navigator was Koesie, so dit is baie interessant, want kyk, Koesie is glad nie 'n goeie passasier nie, omdat hy op 'n briljante 10 jaar is, en ek en Koes kom nou al vir, man, ek dink, dit is nou seker 28, 29 jaar saam, wat ons beste pelle is, so ons het al alles saam gedoen, alles gaan ervaar, en hierdie was nogals interessant geweest met die, wat ons nou saam dit ook gedoen het in dieselfde bakkie, maar ons het nou besluit volgende jaar met hy self ry en ek ry self, en dan kry ons eie navigators, en oordat ons nou albei maar swaarder as die gemiddelde oues daar, het ons gedink ons gaan vir ons een van daai marathon atlete uit Ethiopië uitgaan haal, daai ouens wat as hulle val, dan maak hulle soos 'n veertjie wat hulle val. So ons gaan maar van hulle kry, dan soos om ten minste average gewig van die ander spanne, en dan hoort ons om redelik die ding te kan doen.
Okay, ek sal nou vir Kosie op 'n ander geleentheid die vraag vra, maar hoeveel keer het hy vir jou gesê, stop net die bakkie, ek sal jou gou wys hoe om dit beter te doen?
Nee, snaaks genoeg, met baie respek aan Koos, hy kyk, ek dink Koos en ek, mense vra ons baie keer die vraag, nou maar, wie is die vinnigste? En as ons moet eerlik wees, en ons het al gepraat daaroor, ek dink my grondpad ervaring is meer as syne, so ek dink ek is vinniger op grondpad, en ek weet sy teerpad is ondervinding is baie meer as myne, so ek weet hy gaan vinniger op die baan wees. So ja, as hulle nou ooit 'n ding hou wat ons, soos die ou, wat was dit, die Sardinia rally wat hulle gravel en teer gery het, dan sal dit lekker werk, want dan gaan ons definitief foons maak. Maar ja, nee, hy was 'n baie goeie passasier gewees, en hy vir my, nie net 'n passasier nie, hy was 'n baie goeie navigator gewees, hy het vir my baie gehelp met om paaltjies uit te wys ensovoorts. Want daar's baie bome en daar's baie paaltjies, en dis regtig 'n interessante, dis nie net 'n kom ons ry daar en dit's maklik nie, dis 'n ongelooflike goeie kompetisie.
Okay. And Koesie has a cunning ability to be able to drive and pour dop at the same time.
Only when he's cycling though. Only when he's cycling. Don't do that when you're driving, that's against the law.
Yeah.
Gentlemen.
Patrick, there's a couple of people that
I'm going to have to go, so I'm going to see you guys. It was nice being on the show. Have fun. I'll see you guys around.
Andrei, baie lekker om weer vir jou te hoor, en ons sien uit daarna dat jy nie te lank in Limpopo kuier nie. Ons wil jou graag terug hier in die Weskaap, en hierdie 2 manne kan nie wag om weer vir jou aan te tree nie, so ons sal werk daaraan om iewers te weer die ou legendes by mekaar te kry.
Nice evening. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lekker bly, goed gaan Andrei.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There's 2 or 3 people that we forget about that really turned Mykonos upside down. One was Johnny De Beer in the $1 million cadet. That thing I hated with a passion. I mean, that had to be a touring car in a Gymkhana body. And I was lucky enough to drive that thing at the CP Super Special at Kalani one day. And if only I could rally something like that. Wow, that thing was proper. I've never driven anything. Not even my A7 Corolla was as quick as that thing. That thing would make, I don't know, they never gave me the exact power figures on that cadet, but that thing was stupid power. Yeah. And it had a straight cut.
The bad news is you do realize that Werner won Mykonos twice without a navigator.
Yeah, but then we use the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Kobus Frey also won it in a broke, so does it really count?
That doesn't really count.
He won it with a body and without a body.
Yeah, but I think a win in a BM or something was more important because, the BM, you just, like, no matter even if you won or you came there with anything, and when Werner came out, that was it, game over. Crowd weren't interested in who had the fastest time or just out that couldn't drive in a straight line.
Mike, wat is jou lekkerste kar wat jy ooit gery het? Rally of motorsportkar? Ja, motorsportkar.
Sy Uno.
Ja, dat was the scariest car. The A7 Corolla Werner.
Is it?
The one of Etienne Lawrence's. That car actually scared me. That car scared me the first time I drove it. The first time I always, my whole life, I wanted to drive a car with a sequential gearbox. And I did a deal with Etienne and I flew to Joburg. And he, like, yeah, there's the car. Okay. And I put that thing into first gear and it was, and I was like, whoa, I've broken it. And I drove out of his workshop in Centurion. I went down the road. And I remember I literally had to close my mouth because the smile would have taken the top of my head off. And I remember your expression when you said to me the first time you drove that S2000 with a sequential gearbox. Unless you've driven a sequential gearbox, you can't explain it to anybody. And I remember, and I mean, I don't need to hide this. I remember tears rolled down my face because it was just like I'd achieved like a lifelong dream to drive a proper rally car. And then we went on to Leon Botha's farm. And Leon said to me, okay, go and drive the roads and see if you like it. And he was one or two guys here from Toyota, so no pressure. And I didn't have a clue on how to drive this thing. And I went down there, getting out of a Group N car into that thing. It was like jumping out of a 1300 into a V8. And I went down and I came back and Etienne looked at me and he was like, yeah, you sit here, I'll show you how to drive this thing. Yeah. I've never prayed so much in my life. I think I was actually supposed to be watching, but I remember praying for most of the time in the car. There was an area where you went next to the fence down to a bridge, like under a railway line. And it was rough, and Etienne just kept this thing pinning in 6th gear down there. And I remember thinking to myself, I just paid this out for this car. How can you do that?
It's mine.
I don't even have the money to fix this thing if it breaks now because it was and he came down to this rough stuff. And I remember the car being on the ground at some other stage. And he came down to this bridge and he went down through the box right down into 1st gear. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm never going to be able to drive this thing. We got to P that next weekend or weekend, and I was up against Mark Renier. And there was no pressure. Remy called us in and said, guys, we need points for Toyota on this event. You need to be ahead of the VWs. So we go. And we got to Scribanti, and I hadn't been there since the Polo Cup days. And I remember I beat Mark on the first stage, and the second stage he beat me. And then we went to a town stage, up and down on some freeway. And I remember I was like grinning from ear to ear because I'd never been anything this quick in my life. And I thought, okay, 1 second between myself and Mark Renier going to Culturama. Now we're going to put on. And I had my buck here, Patrick. You know, that Culturama, he took, I think, 20 odd seconds off me. And I had no answer to it. It's just, that car was just stupid quick. And that car is probably the best car I've ever driven in my life. I managed to beat him on 1 or 2 stages and we beat the VWs. But that car in that forest with Dean Redlinghuyse navigating for me, my wife just said to me, I made Dean Redding cry. He said to me, I was so passionate when I drove Culturama, when I beat Mark on the stage, that he actually was in tears when we got to the service park. He said to me, he never experienced anything like that. And to me, it was, I just achieved, if I'd stopped running right there and then, I would have been happy. And Werner, you were actually spectating in that event, and you came to me and you said to me, nee, you're goed. And I was like, yes, it's good. I can't even bly met hierdie ouens. And I remember the Cape Town boys had a good event, that event. The Saturday night was even worse.
Toby Jones.
Yeah. That car was a really, really special car. And I didn't do a lot of events in it. I barrel rolled that car in what was that stage in Bloemfontein, Patrick? It wasn't Bloem, it was just outside of Bloem.
Now you got me now.
The Osram Rally.
There's quite a few stages on the Osram Rally that get your attention. They were all pretty demanding stages. That to me is still one of the best rallies South Africa's ever seen. Going out in the mountains there, extremely challenging. Had the privilege to do it 3 times, and I will always remember that fondly. It's a great event. That.
Yeah, actually one of my best wins in that. It was up against you and Etienne.
No, then I don't like it at all if you beat us.
Yeah, to rub that one in.
Actually, I had you navigate for me in the Zanin Rally, and we had lost 10 minutes on the Friday due to me wrong slotting, not you navigating, me wrong slotting.
Not to mention the fact that a rear wheel overtook us as well.
Yeah, the mechanic forgot to tighten the back wheel. And then we were 28 minutes down. And then Saturday morning, we were like second last car to leave Park for May. And you said to me, yeah, don't give up, let's go. And we fought right up until the last stage, from 28 minutes down to 29 seconds behind Costa. And whoever came out the stage first won the championship. And I gave it absolute horns on that. I remember still playing mind games with him at the start. Wheel spinning and warming tires up and doing exercise things. And he was like looking at me like, oh, you're a retard. And we put him under so much pressure. And it was, we came out the stage, we won. He didn't come out. We won the championship. He finished second.
It was sad to see it end up that way, but that's unfortunately the cruelness of motorsport. To finish first, you first have to finish, and that day it was our good fortune to make it to the end. But I have to give you credit. The few times that you wanted to stop on the event, it was great to see you change your mind, because at the end of the day, the result was well worth the effort.
Yeah. But 28 minutes behind, I'll never forget. It was like a lifetime. But that also, one of Werner's best rallies was the Sassel rally at S2000. And he had one of the most interesting navigators, Etienne. And he could motivate you as well, Werner. Etienne had the ability to motivate you and teach you how to drive while he was navigating.
Yeah, which was sometimes good and sometimes difficult. Want vir alles jy dalk so deur die lug vlieg en hy sê vir jou nee, maar nog vinniger gaan. Ek dink jy kan dalk partykeer nog vinniger gaan nie, maar ja. Nee, hy was 'n lekker leerskool gewees. Ons was 'n lekker span, was ek en Paulo Piazza Musso en Etienne Lourens. Ons het op baie stadium wou ons 'n deal gedoen het om minis in te bring, F2000 minis. En ons het daarna gekyk en toe het ek die Runnex gekoop om so lank te begin om die ding voor te berei. Maar ja, ek dink die groot probleem met dit was ek kon nooit daai kar regtig tot sy volle potensiaal ry nie, want 'n mens in jou agterkop sit jy en dink aan hierdie 50,000 en 100,000 rand wat dit jou gaan kos as jy nou 'n foutjie maak of vir dit of vir dat. Dis 'n dierkar om te ry. Daai kar is so en dis nie nonsens wat die ouens praat nie. Daai ding kos jou R1,000 'n kilo wat jy ry. Dis nie die feit. 'n rally is 130,000 Ek praat nou van 10 jaar gelede. So dis 'n duur storie. Die gearbox moet uitkom soos wat julle almal weet na elke rally en die shocks moet oorgedoen word. En so ja, dit is nie 'n goedkoop ding om te ry nie. So ek is bly, ek is bitter bly en bitter bevoorreg gewees om my ondervinding te gehad het. Dit was ook een van my drome om altyd so 'n kar te gery het. Dit was snaaks, ek dink gister of eergister het daar juist 'n ding opgekom waar op Facebook een van 'n memory wat ek die factory karre van Gugu en Wora Dippenaar het ek in die laaste stages almal gebied en nog sideways gery om Swartkops. So ja, maar nou ook om vir jou weet te gee op baie selfe rally het een vir ons 25 minute vroeg laat inboek in 'n time contract. So dan is jou rally ook hoor, maar ja, dit was alles deel van die ondervinding en van daai jaar en ek was bevoorreg geweest om dit te kon doen regtig waar. En
But you upset a lot of people in that car on that rally. I remember we went to go spectate and you did us really proud in that event because, and I'm not saying this because you're there, you're such a humble oak and you're such a genuinely nice guy. I mean, that's why I'm with this woman here for 21 years because you introduced me to her. So I had to go all the way to P because I need to come into premium. But, Werner, you're such a humble oak and you're such a nice guy. And I think when you arrived on the scene there with that S2000, a lot of the guys that were running at the top of the field in S2000s didn't look anywhere to the right or to the left to even notice you before the event. Yeah, who's Werner? Yeah. And after that second stage, wow, they knew who Werner was. They really did. And I mean, people, like, I remember in the service park, they went and asked, who's this up? And I said, that's Werner. And all of a sudden, the top oaks were coming to ask for your time. And I think that was an achievement for anybody. I mean, when the top guys come to you, they don't know your name before the event. And all of a sudden, after the second or third stage, wie is die jou? Waar kom hy vandaan?
Ja, dankie Mike. Yes, thanks man.
And it was just such an amazing experience just to sit on the outside and watch how you processed everything. And the pressure didn't mount. I mean, you didn't show it, so we'd rather say that. But yeah, you did us really proud on that event. It's just a pity it was only that event that you drove. We were really hoping to see you go much more than that.
Ja, ek het daai jaar het ek net die Gauteng die Toyota rally gery. En toe die Sasol, dit was die twee wat ek gery het met die kar. Maar ja, dit was soos ek sê, dit was 'n vreeslike lekker ondervinding. Ek dink, kyk, make no mistake, ek dink Patrick sal onthou, ek het altyd die grap gemaak van ek het die butterflies nie, maar ek het seagulls in my maag. Maar ek dink een ding is ek geniet altyd wat as ek ry. Dit is my regtig 'n passie en dit is regtig lekker en dis regtig dit sit 'n smile op my gesig. As ek
what do you call it? Eating hot dogs, or what was it? That story that you said with the steering wheel? What is it? What is it?
Yeah.
I think that Werner was part of the regional Stickland syndicate. Although he doesn't want to admit that he was a rebel.
No, wasn't. Ek was nie daai jare hier nie. Dit was definitief. Dis seker. Ja. Nee, dit is back in tye.
Mr. Vermaak, we're always talking about everybody around, but I need to ask you a question. Which event sticks in your mind, whether it was Gymkhana or rallying, that really had an effect or that you remember as a navigator, that really has an impact on your career?
That's a good question. I've never given it a thought even. To me, the thing I appreciate that I will always take with me from anything I've done in motorsport is the people I had the privilege to be associated with, have driven with you guys. It's more than a result to me. To me, it's an experience. It's something that I can carry with me forever. You don't need a trophy on a mantelpiece. It's to a certain degree, motorsport is a very selfish game, in the sense that nobody out there can truly experience what you as an individual experience, be that as a driver or as a navigator. And to me, the real value is in getting to know a Werner Koekemoer better than the guy just watching from the outside, or a Kosi Swanepoel, or a Mike Nathan. And for different reasons, each of you have played a real big role in my life. Just as an example, Mike, you will always be the king of Mykonos, and possibly the guy that gave me the most nightmares with the questions you always used to have to ask at every event. But it's not said in a
Just give
negative
us one of those questions.
it's something that I will always appreciate about you, and I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed driving with you as a navigator. And I'll still say it. If you just learned to shut up, you were a bloody good driver as well. But,
Like wat sê sy vrou dieselfde?
Dis ek kom ek lag.
Werner, for that very reason you see on the screen, you never see that smile leave his face when he's behind the wheel. He's possibly the person that really shows his emotions most in a motor car, and it's great to see. It doesn't matter whether it's upside down, sideways, in a ditch, or flat out over the line. That smile never leaves his face. And those are the things that I value. Those are the things I enjoy from it. And I appreciate the fact that you guys were willing to come and do all those stupid events we used to have. If I have to put Werner in perspective, I would like to see anybody do Gaido in a more spectacular fashion than this man could in that BMW. That to me, that was at a windscreen with goggles on, and that BMW. Well, Walter All used to say, real good rally drivers have dead flies on the side windows. Well, he proved it because he didn't even have a windscreen. But he still drove through the side windows. So those are, I don't have a specific event. I have lots of events that I'll always treasure, and it's not even 90% of those wouldn't even be as a competitor. It would be simply being on the event and experiencing the people on the event. No sport is anything without the people in it. And I think what made Gymkhana specifically successful is the fact that everybody took ownership of the event. Everybody worked towards making it a better event. And that to me is the element that I will always treasure from it. Everybody was competitive. Everybody wanted to win, but everybody worked together to make it a better event.
Yeah, I think this Bible.
I remember Werner even was asked by Mykonos, or you actually, maybe not the other way around. I think you went to Mykonos to ask them if you could do those rides.
The timber, yeah.
And I mean, people, I met a guy in Germany at Nürburgring about 4 years ago. And he just happened to be at Mykonos one day, and he told me about this guy that drove a blue car. He didn't know what car it was. And he just smoked tires the whole day. And what an awesome job he had by driving around smoking tires the whole day. And I said, I actually know that like pretty well. And he's like, what? I said, yeah. That wasn't his job. He did it because he was passionate about it. And that's what made Werner such a likable guy. Besides that and cookies and coke. But I mean,
Dis Rieslo en Sprite zero.
There is one thing that Werner and Kosi can do better than drive. Let's not make a fire.
It's called being social.
Social. Maybe it's called social. And that was the nicest part about Mykonos. Everybody on a Friday night, everybody was nervous and we go from Cleaver to Cleaver. Patrick always said, I think you had 007 was always your favorite Cleaver. And we go there, go do documentation, get that mace nest thing. That route schedule, that was a mace nest. Yeah. And then your stress level climbed through the roof. And anything afterwards, after you got that thing, didn't matter because life stopped right there. And that route schedule, you would walk around in pitch darkness with a torch. Remember doing that, Werner?
Ja, ek onthou dat hulle dit gemaak het deur 'n pen te maak staan en dan vat hulle die papier en maak so op hom. Ek dink hulle die pen gevat het op die papier. Hulle het dit anders omgedoen, want dit was baie keer absoluut. Ek kan onthou dat daar mense mekaar vasgeloop het terwyl hulle geoefen het op die papier. Dit is so erg het was, want jy kyk so op jou papier en jy sien niemand of niks raak.
Ek kan nie name noem nie, maar ek wou 'n paar van julle ophang op 'n Vrydag aand ook, omdat julle geoefen het op die baan en
dit was gery.
It was those out from
Nee, Mike, it was Dreyer.
And on the Saturday night prize giving. I remember Saturday night prize giving.
Dit wys vir jou, jy moet dit terugbring. Ons moet dit weer doen. Ek dink dit is so 'n belangrike ding en al is dit dalk nou nie by Mykonos self. Ek dink die Mykonos ding was lekker want daar was altyd twee karre wat te mekaar gery het. So dit was die ander ding wat natuurlik dit verskriklik exciting gemaak het. Veral as jy die twee top ouens gehad het wat op daai selfe oomblik te mekaar ry. En dit is seker nie altyd maklik om so 'n plek te kry nie, maar daar is soveel fantastiese plekke. Daar's 'n ongelooflike plek in Eiserfontein wat 'n verskriklike groot teerblad het. Dis die vismark, maar as die vis nie daar is nie, is daai plek hy staan letterlik vir 8 maande of 9 maande dood. So dis 'n fantastiese plek. Ek het nou vir jou vertel, ek weet nie Mike of jy al ooit in jou lewe Versveld pas gery het nie. Dis as jy van Piketberg af gaan na bo Piketberg toe. Ek het dit nou die dag gaan ry. Dis seker een van die beste passe wat jy in jou lewe sal ooit sien. Dit lyk soos daai passe in Europa of China wat hairpin na hairpin, 21 baie.
Jy praat van daai teepas wat ons nooit gery het met die bakkie of my M3
Nee, is 'n teer, dis teer en is maar dis ongelooflik. Dis absoluut 'n ongelooflike pas. Regtig, gaan kyk vanaand. Is letterlik 10 km buite of 8 km buite Piketberg. So dis 'n fantastiese lekker plek om te doen. So ja, Patrick, daar's vir jou baie waar jy definitief nog ek is seker van jy staan in die oggend partykeer op en dink, waar gaan ons 'n Gymkhana of 'n heel klein reël? So ja, ons is daar, ons back jou en ons sal verseker daar wees as jy dit wil doen, definitief.
Wel, as ek kyk hoeveel klein ideetjies groot goed geword het, dan weer eens, het sou nie gewerk het as daar nie 'n Werner en 'n Mike was om aan deel te neem nie. En dit is wat ek vir julle wil dankie sê, is vir al die jare se ondersteuning. Of dit nou Gydou of Mykonos of Vredenburg of selfs sover as Vredendal was, dit was altyd lekker om julle ouens daar te kom en hierdie byeenkomste kon nooit 'n sukses gewees het sonder julle as deelnemers nie. En ek dink dis die grootste punt wat 'n mens kan oordra daaruit, is die vriendskappe wat hier uit ontwikkel het, is iets wat geen geld kan koop nie, geen trofee kan dit vervang nie. En ek kan net vir julle almal dankie sê vir daardie ondersteuning oor die baie jare.
Patrick.
Ja, ek dink Mike wil presies dieselfde sê as ek. Ek dink sonder jou sou dit definitief daar gewees het. Zeker.
Ja, die span, sorry.
Dis 'n spanpoging. Jy kan niks soos wat jy julle almal al ervaar het, motorsport is 'n spansport in alle opsigte, nie net as deelnemer nie, maar agter die skerm so ook, jy kan niks op jou eie doen nie. daar's 'n klomp mense betrokke en elkeen speel sy rol om dit 'n sukses te maak. En
Maar
maar
wat even
dit was 'n absolute voorreg geweest. En ek wil graag hê dat ons tot môreoggend hier op die lug bly.
Ja.
Maar ek dink arme ou Byron agter die skerms begin
Ja,
al
man.
dink ons gaan die hele nag gesels.
Ja.
So ek moet ons gelukkig vir ons 'n bietjie kort knip. Maar ek hoop en vertrou dat dit is die eerste keer van 'n paar keer wat of van baie kere in die toekoms wat ons weer die ouens gaan bymekaar kry en 'n bietjie 'n terugblik hê op dit wat was en hopelik dit wat kom. Baie dankie vir julle tyd. En hou daai BMW, ons sien uit daarna om jou terug te sien, Mike. Jy ook met jou Evo. Nou ja. Nou soos hulle sê, the ball is in your court now. Nou moet ons sien wanneer jy weer terugkom.
As hy Mike.
That okay, Mr. Lingerveld has been so quiet. He's probably going to be driving the Evo soon. So he sits here with a smirk on his face.
You're
But
talking too much, Patrick. I think we need to go sleep now. I can hear his wife is saying it.
thank you, Patrick, for having us. And,
Thanks, guys. It's been a nice show.
Baie dankie, ja. Dit was lekker geweest, ouens. Dankie.
Werner loopt op nie. Ek voel jy goed.
Loop dop.
Werner, ek is jammer jou vuur is dood, so jy sal nou moet van vuur maak, man.
Nee, dis geen probleem. Jy is gelukkig kameeldoring hou.
Dankie ouens. Thanks Clint. Thanks
You guys.
Byron behind the
Cheers.
scenes.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Until next
Okay.
time.
Okay,
Cheers,
bye-bye.
yeah.
Thanks.